If you're looking to take your Fulcrum build to the next level or looking for another MF build to play this league, this is going to be it. This build has better clear, better singles target, more increased item quantity than Fulcrum, and on top of that, all with similar defense. I've been playing this for the last couple of weeks. We're sitting at 107% increased item quantity. Found my mirror, found my Mageblood, found my Headhunter, and in today's video, I'm going to be going over this build, showing you how to transition it from Fulcrum to this. It's not very hard, but also going over the gear. This isn't going to be a full build guide. It's more of a build showcase, but I am going to go over most of it. I want to say a big thank you to Simply Business for his version of the build, which inspired this one. I will link his build guide in the description below. I've taken mine in a more MF direction than his, but I've taken a lot of concepts that he introduced in his video. Also want to say a thank you to Lars for sharing his ultra expensive version of this, which also informed a lot of the decisions I made on this. His POB also linked in the description. What is the build? This is very similar to Fulcrum. We're using a cast when stunned setup, which means that every time we get stunned, we're casting our spells, which kill monsters. In order to guarantee that we are always getting stunned whenever we get hit, we are using this mastery over here. Stun threshold is based on 60% of your energy shield instead of life. And if we take the agnostic, which I unspec for some reason, we can get our energy shield down to 0, which means we have basically no stun threshold. Everything always stuns us. Now combine that with Blood Notch and Immutable Force. Now with Immutable Force, once we hit the breakpoint, I believe it's 961% increased stun and block recovery. That means we will have a 1 frame stun animation, which is as fast as it can go, which means you're not really going to notice being stunned. So you need to get that, and then we're going to combine that with Blood Notch down here, which means that damage taken from stunning hits is recovered as life. This is how we maintain that stun and without getting interrupted too much and dying constantly. And then we're linking that with our main skills, cast when stunned. I'll go into the skills in a bit, but that's essentially how the build functions. So as you can see here, these monsters hit us and all of our spells go off. Every time they hit us, I'm not doing anything, hands off, everything just instantly gets cast the moment I get hit. So that's the function of the build. Let's go over some of the gear and then I will describe some of the passives. But to start out, we are using similar MF gear to a lot of builds. We have Sadima's Touch. On these, what you want is either +1 level of socketed gems or +2 level of AoE gems or aura gems. You can also get that on your boots, your Goldworm boots. This endurance charges is a vestige of the Fulcrum that I was playing before. So you can get +2 AoE here or +2 AoE here or +1 level of all socketed gems. We're just doing this to stack up our quantity. Then for our body armor, Greed's Embrace, same thing. You want to get 15% increased quantity of items found on this. The rarity, less important. Don't spend all your money to get higher rarity. Rarity is not as valuable as it was earlier this league. As for the implicits, most important is going to be +1 to all maximum resistances. And then if you can get +2 AoE, that's good. Also reduced fire damage taken. Those are all nice modifiers. Our helmet, now, because I will go into it later, we are not reserving any mana. Increased mana reservation efficiency, useless. But this means that we get an extra suffix on our helmet, which means you can use it to get some fire resistance or life regen. Chaos resistance, very important. As for the prefixes, life, 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 armor, and then we want to bench on physical taken as fire. As for the implicits, same thing, fizz taken as fire, and then preferably what you want is fizz damage taken recouped as life, but fire damage taken recouped as life is also okay. I just ran out of embers and got lazy, so Amulet. Eyes of the Greatwolf. Most important thing here, because we are MFing, is increased quantity of items found. You want to get that to 20%. The other modifiers that are good, increased maximum life is great. Cold damage taken as fire is great. AoE, there's probably a few other ones, but don't spend all your money. Most important thing, increased quantity of items found. As for the Anoint, Vampirism, great Anoint just to help keep us alive. I've been wondering if maybe I should do Whispers of Doom and then slot in a second curse like Enfeeble, but for now this has been feeling good. However, I do want to point out I am still using Defiance of Destiny occasionally. The reason for this, whenever I go into a map, into the Wildwood, I'm putting on my Defiance of Destiny just so that I don't get killed by something in there. It's very rare that anything does kill me in there, but this is just an extra layer of protection. Also, sometimes when you get tons of wisps and the map mods are just too much and you click too many altars, you might need to slot this in if you feel like you're just getting killed a bunch. It does happen, so I always have this sitting here waiting just in case of an emergency. As for our shield, we're using Dawnbreaker. Dawnbreaker, we're converting a whole lot of cold, lightning, and fizz taken as fire, which when combined with a ruby flask, which gives us less fire damage taken, this is very, very good layer of defense. Over here, Dawnbreaker also giving us a bit of armor, chance to block. Rings. Probably thinking, where are the Venters? Why am I not using Venters? Well, like I said earlier, rarity unfortunately has fallen off massively because of the number of people MFing at this point in the league and the number of Voldos boxes dropping. There are very few high value uniques left. There's basically Mageblood and Headhunter. There's a few others that if you corrupt them, you can get some good money. But at this point, I'm chasing Divines, I'm chasing Mirrors. I'm just stacking as much quant as possible. That's why I've gone for these Pariahs. You can buy these with white sockets. I believe I got this for 4 Divines. Can get 2 of these. It's also cheaper than Venters. A well-rolled Venters will cost you a hell of a lot more than 4 Divines. So Pariah, we're not going Venters. As for Mageblood, do you need it? I'm leaning towards saying yes. I have not tested without Mageblood, but I think you could maybe get away with a Stygian Vice if you're on like a mega budget. However, at this point in the league, I feel like it's not actually a stretch to say this build is using a Mageblood, and that's okay. I'll show our Flasks in a second. Before, I want to first show the weapon. This beautiful thing, this comes from our friend PTK. This is his mirror tier Oscillating Sceptre. If you want a copy, you can hop into my Discord, reach out to PTK. I believe the mirror fee is 50 Divines. If you cannot afford such a fancy thing, an alternative is something like this. This is an Oscillating Sceptre, damage over time multi-fracture with +2 and a multi-mod. This, if you go on the trade site, is very expensive. I believe it's about 280 Divines or something like that. You can probably make it yourself for a bit cheaper. However, when I started this build, I just bought this. Well, I bought the base. The most important thing is the base. Oscillating Sceptre with Elemental Overload. That's the #1 important thing. The other stuff, cherry on top. We have enough damage even just using a basic one like this. I would recommend trying to get +1 level of all spell skill gems, but if you can't get that, just something like this, +1 level of all physical spell skill gems with a multi-mod for 2 Divines. This works perfectly fine, and then you can work your way up to getting something like this. And then if you're really rich, get in contact with our friend PTK, get a copy of one of these. This thing is beautiful. But the most important mods, this is a good example. +1 level of all spell skill gems is great. +1 level of all physical spell skill gems is also great. This is going to increase the level of our Unearth, which we will go into in detail in a bit. As for our Flasks, Amethyst Flask, this gives us more chaos resistance. The suffix reduce effective curse on you during effect, very important. I didn't have this for a while and I was dying a bit more than I was expecting. I looked up, noticed that vulnerability was pretty often the thing that was killing me, so I popped this suffix on. Build's feeling a lot better. Then Gold Flask, actually, you know what? Increase, I didn't even think about this. I don't even think I want to use this anymore. I think I'm going to go for a Granite Flask. Rarity, it doesn't affect those loot explosion conversions, so I really don't feel like we need this. With this on though, we're getting up to 190 rarity with this, but I mean, I think I might actually swap this for a Granite Flask. I mean, rarity is not useless. You can still find your Magebloods, which are worth a good chunk of money, so you don't have to completely drop that. As for this, going for a Quicksilver Flask with 25% increased effect and movement speed during effect. And then, very important, is our Ruby Flask with 15% damage taken from hits is leached as life during effect. And the prefix is the Alchemist 25% increased effect. Then, for our last Flask, Divination Distillate, very important, very, very important. This is going to give us increase item quantity. However, the moment that it tops off your life, its effect ends. So how do we combat this? What we're going to do is we're going to be using Blood Rage. This is going to just drop our life below 50%. All of our life regen effects do not work above 50% because we're using Petrified Blood. So by having this, it just keeps our life sitting just below that 50% point, and then we can use this and get the full duration of our Divination Distillate, which sits us at 107% increased item quantity. Hopefully that made sense. While we're looking here, let's look at the gems. We are using Detonate Dead of Chain Reaction. This gives us more consistent clear, and because we are not using the tech that Fulcrum uses, which is essentially trying to get big explosion procs on monsters and then having that ignite reflected to you, we're actually using this to clear, and it feels really good. We're using the damage from this for better clear. Also linking this with Flame Surge, this just increases the amount of damage that burning enemies take and creates burning ground underneath them. And then for corpse generation, for our Detonate Dead, we are using Unearth. This we are linking with GMP, Enhance, and again, cast when stunned, so that this is how we generate corpses. This also does some damage. These combined gives us very nice clear. As for our other cast when stunned setup, we have Void Sphere, Frostbomb, cast when stunned. Frostbomb, this cancels regen from monsters. Sometimes you find one of those beefy boys, just keeps regening, this cancels that. And then Void Sphere to suck monsters together, and then you explode them. I did notice that Business was using Void Sphere of Rending. I haven't tested it myself. Maybe there's something I'm missing on that, but just normal Void Sphere works perfectly fine for me. As for our other utility setups, Blood Rage, which I went over earlier, then Phase Run on our left click linked with efficacy and increased duration so that we can go faster for longer. Just a basic Frostblink in one of our Pariahs. Over here we have a Vitality in our other Pariah. As for our auras, we have Arctic Armor. This gives us less physical and fire damage taken while stationary. The immunity to freeze does not matter as much. Purity of Fire, very important in this one. You want to hit level 23 on this to get the 5% additional maximum fire resistance. You can get this by either having +2 level of AoE gems or aura gems in your gloves or boots, along with a level 21 Purity of Fire. That'll give you level 23. Alternatively, if you do have a +1 level of all spell skill gems, you can get a +1 Sadimas with a 21 Purity of Fire to reach that level 23 breakpoint. That'll give you +1 max fire res. Then we're linking this with Petrified Blood and Enlighten. This is another reason I like +1 level of socketed gems instead of +2 AoE. It gives us +1 level of our Enlighten, so you don't have to go out and spend 80 divines, whatever it is, on an Enlighten level 4. Then over here, we have Purity of Elements linked with Eternal Blessing. I'm going to go over it now, but this is literally a free aura. We are reserving life instead of mana on this build. I'll show you how in a second. But what Eternal Blessing says is your non-blessing skills which reserve mana are disabled while you have an aura from a supported skill on you. Like I said, we're not reserving mana, so this is a free aura. If you really want, I guess you could maybe use Determination with a Granite Flask, but this feels good to me. It's giving us ailment immunity. It's giving us some other good stuff, which I'll show you. Might as well show you right now. So over here, we have our Watcher's Eye. And this Watcher's Eye, Fizz taken as cold while affected by Purity of Elements, and Fizz taken as fire while it's affected by Purity of Elements. So we're getting 23% Fizz taken as elemental from this, which is another reason that Purity of Elements is really good. But now let's go over into why are we reserving only life? And this is where Simply Business's tech comes in, and this is the reason I really like this build. So the main thing, Choir of the Damned grants level 20 Penance Mark skill. This is the curse that we are using. The way this works is that it curses an enemy, and then these little phantasms spawn around the monster when it's hit. The phantasms are going to be allies of the enemy, so we can kill them and they can explode, and then those explosions can do massive ignites on the single target, and that's how we get better single target on this compared to Fulcrum. Now this build, it's not insane single target, but for example, it used to take me like 8 minutes to kill a King of the Mists with Fulcrum. This build, it takes about 1 minute. So it's not like insane, but it is much more functional. Penance Mark, this counts as a curse. So this is why I'm not using a second curse on the build. But then over here, Sanguimancy, skills cost life instead of mana, skills reserve life instead of mana, removes all mana, and 50% increase life reservation efficiency of skills. So we have no mana, everything is being reserved by life. However, this is actually fine because we are using Petrified Blood. With Petrified Blood, your life is pretty much never going above 50% anyway, so this works in our favor. Also means that we don't have to link life tap on any of our supports, gives us a whole lot more free sockets. And then as for the rest, all of these are just more wisps, more wisps, more wisps, more wisps. We're also combining this with Blood Magic, which again removes all mana, gives us more maximum life. This is just 10% more maximum life for free. For that which was taken, the most important mod is going to be +2 maximum fire resistance, which in turn is converted to +2 all maximum resistances, well, elemental resistances, because of Valakos Storm's Embrace. Other modifiers, I will leave a link in the description with other mods that are good on that which was taken, but things like phasing, chance to remove bleeding, explode if you can get it is all really good. If anyone in the comments has other suggestions, let me know. But this combined with Prismatic Skin and this node over here, this gives us a lot of max fire res, also Barbarism over here for another 1 max fire res, also Greed's Embrace with the +1, and then also the Purity of Fire. That is how we are reaching that 90%. And again, thank you to PTK and CC for suggesting ways to get to that max fire res. The only other thing that we need to get to that 90% is Molten One's Mark. I'm getting this from a Megalomaniac. Again, I will link in the description, Megalomaniacs with good mods, but the main things that are the main one we want on this is Molten One's Mark for the max fire resistance. Other things that are good, Student of Decay, Master of Fire, pretty much anything else you see here. We can go over the large cluster. This is actually just left over from when I was playing Fulcrum, but Widespread Destruction, Prismatic Heart, Corrosive Elements is, I don't really need this, especially since I have Master of Fire over here, but what we preferably should be using here is Voices, but they are so expensive. So I'm just using this. If you're playing Fulcrum, just use what you had on that. That's totally fine. As for this medium, Fan the Flames, still good, still spreading those ignites, and Cooked Alive just to give us increased chance to ignite and minus fire resistance. A little bit helpful, but mainly there for the increased chance to ignite. Again, if you have some AoE medium clusters left over from playing the Fulcrum, that's totally fine too. For our elegant Hubris, most important thing is Caspero. We need to get Supreme Ostentation. This means ignore attribute requirements. This means that we don't have to worry about dex, int, strength requirements on any of our gear. And then another thing that's important is at least one 12% increase effect of non-curse auras from your skills. This actually helps us, again, get to that 90% all max res. If I take that off, you see it drops down to 89%. So this pushes up our Purity of Fire to another breakpoint where it's giving us another plus for max fire res. So out of all of these, there are some things that are good like Chaos Res, but I'm just going to say if you can get a Supreme Ostentation, which is Caspero, and a Superiority, perfect. That's all you need. You can also get one with Rarity. I unspec this because, again, Rarity is cringe. Now, in order to get crit immune, hits against you cannot be crits if you've been stunned recently, which is always, so we cannot be crit from hits. That's just over here. The other thing I want to go over, because I actually messed this up myself, but we are taking Champion of the Cause at the bottom here. This gives us increased reservation efficiency of skills. Very important, increased reservation efficiency, not increased mana reservation efficiency like Sovereignty up here. This is increased mana reservation efficiency. Again, we are not using mana. Mana is irrelevant. So this Sovereignty wheel, entirely useless to us. You need to come down here to grab this. And this combined with Superiority is how we are reaching that 24% increased effective non-curse auras, which pushes that 5% up to 6% on our Purity of Fire. That's going to be it for this video. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions about the build, please leave it in the comments below. Also, there is a link to my Discord. There's a very active community in there with a lot of cool people. So if you want to hop in, ask some questions about the build and get some more direct answers to your questions, check the link in the description. POB is also going to be linked in the description along with Business's build guide and Lars's POB. Thanks for watching, everyone. Stay safe. Take care. Catch you in the next video. Bye-bye. Bye. Arrow said that I have to use full cam morph.
Divine power! It's ranching exile. You're making me nervous.